Brenda deliberately parked her massive black Range Rover on my front lawn every single day for 2 weeks. She claimed my driveway extended into HOA common property and that she had the absolute right of access. She left deep tire ruts and was killing my grass, completely ignoring my repeated warnings to stop. So, I scheduled a landscaping company to deliver 3 tons of premium hardwood mulch at 7 in the morning. I knew Brenda parked there at exactly 6:30 during her morning power walk. When she returned an hour later, she found her $70,000 luxury SUV completely buried under a mountain of dark mulch. Only the tiny roof antenna was visible. Her screaming panic was worth every penny of the delivery fee. She had to pay massive removal costs before discovering I had perfectly documented 2 weeks of her trespassing. I sued her for property damage that ended up costing her $12,000. My name is Travis Caldwell, and I am a 41-year-old professional landscaping contractor living in Plano, Texas. I live in a quiet neighborhood called Cedar Bluff Estates because I own my own landscaping business. I know property boundaries, grass care, and exactly how much damage heavy vehicles cause to residential lawns. My house has a standard concrete driveway and a very well-maintained front lawn. The property line is clearly marked on the professional survey and the official county records. There is no confusion about it. Brenda Carmichael became the HOA president just 4 months ago. She wore a black pantsuit to every single meeting, kept her golden blonde hair perfectly styled, and carried herself like she owned the neighborhood. She lived 3 houses down and started a bizarre, highly destructive routine 2 weeks ago. Every morning at 6:30, she would drive her massive Range Rover directly onto my beautifully manicured front lawn. Not the driveway, but the actual lawn. She would park it there for exactly 1 hour while she took her morning power walk through the community. Then she would return, start the vehicle, and carelessly drive away. The first time it happened, I genuinely thought it was an accident. I went outside and found deep tire ruts crushed into my grass. I knocked politely on her front door that evening to address the situation. I told her that her SUV was parked on my lawn that morning and left deep ruts. She smugly replied that she parked on common property, claiming my driveway extended right into the official HOA easement. She insisted she had full access rights. I told her firmly that she parked on my private property and there was no easement. I explained that I had personally reviewed the property maps and knew the boundaries. She arrogantly claimed the HOA had access to that area. I challenged her to show me the official maps. She scoffed and said she didn't have to show me anything, insisting she had full authority to use that space. The very next morning at 6:30, her heavy Range Rover was parked right on my lawn again. It was in the exact same spot, creating even deeper ruts. My expensive grass was dying where the tires sat every day. I put up a small rope barrier with wooden stakes to protect the lawn. She drove right over it without hesitating. I put up a bright sign that clearly read "Private Property" and "No Parking." She completely ignored it. Every single morning for 2 straight weeks at 6:30 sharp, her Range Rover was sitting on my lawn. The deep ruts worsened and the dead grass kept spreading. My professional landscaping was totally ruined. I documented absolutely everything. I took clear photos every single day. I saved the video from my security camera, showing her deliberately driving onto my lawn, parking the heavy vehicle, and then walking away. I took careful measurements of the tire damage and gathered professional estimates for complete grass replacement. Then, I sent her a formal certified letter explaining she was trespassing and causing severe damage. I demanded she stop immediately, or I would take aggressive legal action. I included clear photos of the damage and a copy of my survey showing the true property line. She responded with a ridiculous warning letter. She claimed HOA authority and actively threatened to fine me for interfering with her access rights. That was the exact moment I decided to teach Brenda an incredibly expensive lesson about residential trespassing. As a landscaping contractor, I have excellent relationships with local suppliers. I called my trusted mulch supplier and ordered 3 tons of premium hardwood mulch to be delivered on a Friday morning at 7. My guy on the phone noted that 3 tons was a massive amount and asked what the project was. I calmly told him I was covering an unauthorized vehicle. He was shocked, but I told him to just deliver it at 7. I told him to pile the massive mountain of mulch wherever I pointed. Thursday night, I prepared everything perfectly. I checked my security cameras to make sure they were recording and set my morning alarm for 6. Friday morning arrived, and I watched quietly through my front window. At 6:30 exactly, Brenda's Range Rover pulled right onto my lawn. She parked in her usual spot, got out, and headed down the street. At 5 minutes to 7, the heavy delivery truck arrived. It was loaded with 3 tons of beautiful, dark hardwood mulch. The driver, a guy named Hank, looked out the window at Brenda's illegally parked SUV. Hank pointed out that there was a vehicle parked right where I wanted the delivery. I told him I knew and ordered him to bury it. He looked at me seriously, and I explained the vehicle had been trespassing daily. I told him the owner had been notified repeatedly and I had full documentation. I gave the final order to bury it. Hank just grinned, said I was the boss, and carefully positioned the massive dump truck into place. He released 3 tons of heavy mulch directly onto and completely around Brenda's Range Rover. The dark mulch violently cascaded over the hood, covered the roof, and totally swallowed the sides of the luxury SUV. Within 3 short minutes, the $70,000 vehicle was entirely buried. Only the tiny roof antenna and a small part of the windshield were visible above the mountain. I paid Hank and went back inside. Brenda confidently returned from her morning walk at 7:45. I watched through my window as she turned the corner and stopped dead in her tracks. Her arrogant face went from confused to absolutely panicked. She ran frantically toward the massive mulch pile, screaming at the top of her lungs. She yelled, asking what happened and where her car was. Neighbors quickly came outside, and everyone was recording on their phones. Brenda was desperately digging through the heavy mulch with her bare hands. Trying to uncover her beloved Range Rover, she shrieked that someone had deliberately buried her car. I finally stepped calmly outside. I gave her a cheerful good morning. She spun around, pointed at me, and screamed that I did this. I calmly explained that I simply had mulch delivered for a landscaping project on my own private residential property. I told her it was not my fault her vehicle was illegally trespassing on my property when the delivery arrived. She screamed that I buried her car. I reminded her that she parked on my lawn again after 2 weeks. I reminded her she did this after damaging my grass and receiving formal legal notice to stop. She demanded I get her car out immediately. I told her that was entirely her responsibility since she parked it there. I suggested she hire someone to meticulously remove the heavy mulch and recover her vehicle. She threatened me, claiming this was destruction of property. I firmly corrected her, saying her trespassing was the real crime. I told her I had 2 weeks of solid documentation showing her deliberately parking on my lawn, damaging my grass, and completely ignoring my requests. I invited her to call the police, knowing they couldn't help her. I told her the police would simply tell her to hire a removal company. Brenda did call the police in a frantic rage. Officer Reynolds from the Plano PD arrived and assessed the bizarre situation with sheer amusement. He politely asked Brenda whose property the vehicle was currently parked on. She admitted it was mine, but aggressively claimed she had HOA access rights. The officer asked if she had any actual legal documentation. She tried to argue that the HOA had authority, but Officer Reynolds cut her off. He asked again for legal documentation. She admitted she only reviewed the maps, proving she had zero actual permission to park there. Officer Reynolds turned to me and asked if I had ever given her permission to park on my grass. I told him never. I explained I had asked her repeatedly to stop and even sent certified letters, which she ignored. The officer turned back to Brenda and clearly stated she was trespassing. He explained that I had a legal delivery made to my own property and it was not my responsibility that her vehicle was parked there illegally. He told her she needed to hire a professional crew to remove the mulch and safely recover her vehicle. She screamed that this was insane. The officer calmly replied that this is exactly how private property rights work. Brenda was forced to hire an expensive emergency excavation company. They charged her a massive $4,000 to carefully remove 3 tons of mulch and delicately extract her Range Rover without causing damage. The exhausting process took 6 full hours. The expensive Range Rover was completely covered in sticky mulch residue and was badly scratched from the excavation process. It required a deep, professional auto detailing. The detailing cost her another $2,000, but I was definitely not done with her yet. I immediately filed a civil lawsuit against her for serious property damage, citing 2 full weeks of daily trespassing. She had utterly destroyed my grass, requiring a complete replacement. Her tires left deep ruts that required intense soil remediation and professional landscaping work. My comprehensive lawsuit included daily photos. One provided the security video showing deliberate trespassing, copies of my certified warning letters, and her absurd response letter claiming false HOA authority. The total damages I aggressively claimed were $12,000. That included $6,000 for grass replacement and soil work, and another $6,000 in punitive damages for her deliberate, repeated trespassing after receiving legal notice. Brenda tried to file a petty countersuit. She wanted to sue me for the cost of her expensive mulch removal. The judge dismissed her ridiculous countersuit immediately. He told her she repeatedly trespassed after being strictly warned, and I had every right. The judge stated I had the right to use my own property as I wished. The fact that her luxury vehicle was illegally present was entirely her problem, not mine. The judge quickly and firmly ruled perfectly in my favor. Brenda officially owed me $12,000 for severe property damage. She was ordered to pay the full amount immediately or face heavy legal liens on her own home. She paid up quickly to avoid further trouble. She also received a harsh, official written reprimand from the Cedar Bluff Estates HOA board. They disciplined her for completely misrepresenting her authority and illegally harassing a fellow neighborhood resident. The board officially confirmed that absolutely no access easement existed and Brenda never had any right to park on my private property. My ruined lawn was professionally repaired using every single cent of Brenda's money. I brought in brand new sod, fresh premium soil, and did a perfect professional grading. My lawn looks significantly better than it ever did before. Brenda never dared to park her vehicle on my fresh grass ever again. In fact, she never spoke a single word to me again. She ultimately resigned as the HOA president just 3 months later. Many other frustrated residents had officially complained about her constant abuse of power. I still have the hilarious security video of her absolutely panicking when she realized her precious Range Rover was buried under 3 tons of dark mulch. Sometimes, when I'm having a bad day, I watch it and smile. Brenda genuinely thought she could trespass daily just because she was the neighborhood HOA president. She thought claiming completely false authority would let her destroy my property without any real consequences. She assumed I would just back down, accept the damage, and do absolutely nothing about it. She was horribly wrong. It cost her $6,000 for the excavation and cleaning, plus a $12,000 judgment. She also completely lost her pristine reputation as the powerful HOA president. Everyone knew she got her SUV buried in a massive pile of mulch just because she was too stubborn to stop parking on a neighbor's lawn. 3 heavy tons of premium hardwood mulch perfectly solved a highly annoying 2-week problem in just one single morning. That was undeniably the absolute best $70 I have ever spent on a local delivery fee. If malicious HOAs or arrogant neighbors repeatedly trespass and intentionally damage your property, make sure to document everything. Be incredibly creative within the strict bounds of the law, because property rights matter. Brenda learned the hard way that illegally parking on someone's lawn for 2 straight weeks leads to a massive mountain of mulch. It also leads to a huge lawsuit when you mess with a landscaper who knows how to make a point.